Is it in the budget? This is an important question to ask yourself. Is it in my budget? Have I budgeted for it? Have I saved up for it? Can I afford to buy it without myself getting into debt or without it taken away from any of my other financial goals or obligations? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, thanks for stopping by. My name's Tolu. On this channel, I share content all around personal finance, budgeting, frugal living, and I show you how to live your best life on a budget. Returning subscribers, thanks for coming back to watch another video. It's amazing that you're still sticking with me. I really appreciate every single one of you. With the state of the economy and the state of the country right now, it's so important for us to literally keep hold of all our money and not spend all the money in which we have. And what I really wanted to do in this video is really share questions that you should ask yourself before you make a purchase, because I think asking yourself these questions and having this conversation with yourself and this internal dialogue before you commit to making any kind of purchases is really going to help you save so much money in the long run. Because once you've asked yourself these questions and you've answered them to yourself honestly, you're going to realize that more often than not, some of these transactions in which you're about to make, you can really avoid making them and consequently save yourself so much more money. On my own financial journey and my journey to debt freedom, I can honestly say these are questions that I've had to ask myself, and even now since becoming debt free, these are still questions that I constantly have to ask myself so that I can check myself when there's times that I just want to splurge and spend money unnecessarily. Asking myself these questions just really brings me back in line and helps me to realize that, okay, this really doesn't serve me that well, and it really isn't going to help me and aid me on my journey to financial freedom. So I hope that by watching this video through to the end, it's really going to make you think twice before you make certain purchases, so that you can really get your money working for you and really start reaching and hitting and even smashing those financial goals in which you've set yourself for this year. Okay, so first on the list is to ask yourself, is this a need or is it a want? Because a lot of the times we try to convince ourselves that things that are wants are needs when they really are not. So for example, we all need food. Food is a necessity. We need food in which to survive. That's a given. But having said that, what food do you need? Because a lot of the times we can convince ourselves that we need to make that purchase or we need to buy that takeaway because we're hungry, but really and truly, all you need is to be well fed. Can you really justify that £30 takeaway when in fact you have more than enough ingredients to make your own meal at home? Now, I'm not saying don't buy a takeaway ever again, not at all. But having said that, ask yourself the question, do I need this or do I just want this? 9 out of 10 times, you can ask yourself that question and talk yourself out of making that unnecessary purchase. Another question to ask yourself is, can I borrow this item? Do I need to actually buy it? Questions like that are good to ask yourself when it comes to purchases that are quite expensive, but that you don't really use enough to get the value out of it. So a good example of this could be you're doing a DIY project in your garden. You're not really much of a handy person and you don't really do many DIY activities. However, there's this project that you need to do and you need a certain kind of drill in order to do this project properly. Okay, that's fine. Are you going to use this drill again after you've made that item? Or is it something you're going to buy, use it once, and it's just going to be gathering dust in the shed for years to come? If so, then maybe consider borrowing it from somebody else that has the item so that you can just use it for what you need to use it for and then save your money. Another question you can ask yourself is this something I can do myself? Now, I know not everybody loves a DIY. I myself love a DIY. There's a couple of examples of my DIY work, but I know not everybody is into doing DIY, and that is totally fine. But there are some things that you could probably do for yourself, like changing a light bulb. That is something that you could learn how to do on YouTube without necessarily getting an electrician out or paying another handy person to come over and do that for you. There are so many things that of course you need to pay professionals to do the job, which is why we have professionals and specialists in certain areas. But a lot of things we could probably do ourselves if we just took the time to learn, watch a few YouTube tutorials and just get it done, rather than spending money paying someone else to do something that you could probably just do yourself. Another question to ask yourself is this the best price for this item? Can I get a better price for it elsewhere? Because a lot of times when you're in a rush, particularly around Christmas time, I know from my own personal experience, Christmas time is the time that I end up spending more money, and that's because I haven't planned ahead and shopped in advance for Christmas presents. So what I'll end up doing is the day before or a week before, I'll just be on Amazon Prime putting things in my basket without necessarily getting the best price for these items. What you really want to do is ask yourself, am I getting the best price for this item before making that purchase? There's so many different price comparison websites out there these days that you can check to make sure you're getting the best price before you start spending your money. Another question to ask yourself is, can I negotiate a better price? For example, when you're going to the mechanics to get your car fixed or you're going to get your car serviced, don't just necessarily go with the first garage and the price in which they've given you. Ask for a discount, ask for a better price, see if there's ways that you can get them to reduce that bill rather than just taking it at face value and taking the price in which they give you. 9 out of 10 times there's always room for a negotiation. I got this from my mum. I remember when I was young and we used to go to the meat market and my mum, listen, they will tell her the price is £20. She'll be like, no, can you do it for me for £10? And they're like, no. This is after they've already finished chopping up the meat and bagging up the meat, and she's just like, nah, I'm not paying that price. And then they would always give her a discount. And they knew her in that meat market because she's done the same thing every time she went there. Whatever the price they gave her, she was not paying it. She was always asking for a deal. And in doing that, she was able to save so much money on her shop. So definitely where you can, negotiate. Also, when it comes to things like your upgrades, your contract, don't just auto renew your contract because it's up for renewal. Question it, see if you can get a better price, negotiate. With my mobile phone contract, I make sure I do that every single 2 years when my contract's up for renewal. I don't just take the first price they give me. I negotiate, I ask for a better deal. I see what they can throw in for free, whether they can throw in some headsets or mobile phone case, or they can give me a discount on my contract, whatever they could do so that I'm getting more value for my money. That is what I did. Another question to ask yourself before you make a purchase is, can I buy this item used? Now, this is something that happened to me recently, and in hindsight, I'm like, oh, Tolly, you actually flopped. So recently I brought a new laptop because my old laptop was on its last legs and it just wasn't working. I had a budget in which I had set myself to buy a laptop, and what I did is I shopped around for the best price laptop for my budget or within my budget. And I was so proud of myself, and I went on my Instagram and I was telling the people on my page like about the fact that I just paid cash for it rather than me buying it on hire purchase. And I was showing them the disgusting prices that they charge you when you pay monthly for a laptop. Don't buy a laptop on monthly installments, like it's the biggest rip-off ever. When I looked at the fine print, the same laptop that I bought for £400, by paying it in installments for 3 years, it was going to cost £600. Why am I paying £600 for something that costs £400? That is insane. With that being said, I was all chuffed with my purchase, and then one of my followers on my Instagram page was like, oh, what you could have done is bought it used. Like, there's a website called Sex where you, CEX, not SEX by the way, but there's a website called Sex where you can buy second-hand refurbished versions of these laptops, and they work just as well, and you can get a really high spec one at the same price you basically pay for the brand new lower spec one. And I was like, oh, Dirtolu, why didn't I think of that? So that's why I'm telling you now, that is a question to ask yourself before you make a purchase. Not every single time you just need to buy the item brand new outright. See if you can buy a used version of it at a fraction of the price. Have I looked for a cheaper, lower cost alternative solution to what I need? So it might be a case, for example, that you need to buy a new car because your car's not really working, but maybe right now it's not in a budget, it's not something you can afford to do right now. So maybe consider a lower cost alternative, which might be a bike or it might be a scooter. So it's still going to serve the same purpose. You're still going to be able to get to and from work, but it's not going to cost you as much because you've considered the cost and you've thought about it. And you're like, actually, but rather than spending £5,000 on a car, I'll rather just spend £200 on a bike, and that money I can put towards my other financial goals. So really question whether or not you can find a lower cost alternative to achieve the same result. Do I need to buy this item now? Like, can it actually wait to a later date? So I'm not saying don't buy it. Question yourself, is it something I need now? Can it wait another month? Can it wait 6 months? Can it wait a year? That's a question to ask yourself before making that purchase. Half of the time we ask yourself this question, you might find that actually, I don't need to buy this now. It can wait until a later date. Is it in the budget? This is an important question to ask yourself. Is it in my budget? Have I budgeted for it? Have I saved up for it? Can I afford to buy it without myself getting into debt or without it taken away from any of my other financial goals or obligations? This is an important question to ask yourself. Another good question to ask yourself is, can I afford to buy this thing twice? So it's not even enough to say, yes, I can afford to buy this item. I have £50 in my account. This item costs £50. Yes, I can afford to buy it. No, can I afford to buy this item again and again? So have I got £150 in my account before buying this item? By me buying this item now, does that mean that I have no more money left in my account and I have no wiggle room to achieve any other financial goals or meet any other financial obligations? So that's a good question to ask yourself. Like, can I afford this item twice? Because it's one thing saying, yes, I can afford it and stretch yourself and have nothing left, but it's another thing to be able to afford that payment again and again. So another question to ask yourself is, do I already have an item that's very similar to this? And when I thought of this question, I thought of it in relation to clothing and shoes, because I don't know about you, but with me, I've been guilty of it in the past, buying the same item in different colors or buying similar items the same color. So for example, there was a time when I had so many pairs of shoes, and I literally had about 10 pairs of black shoes or black heels, but all different styles. So some were a bit pointy, I had different styles of strappy ones, I had different heel types, and really and truly, they're all black heels. Like, they all do the same job, they're all going to get me from A to B. I'm not saying don't have a bit of variety. By all means, variety is the spice of life. However, how much variety do you actually need? At what point is enough enough? I had 10 pairs of black heels. If I didn't change my mindset when it came to spending on things like that, by now I'll probably have 100 pairs of black heels, because there was no stopping. There was always something else that I needed. There was always a reason to buy a different version of the same thing. But really and truly, ask yourself, do I need 100 pairs of shoes? I think you have enough and you probably don't need to buy any more. I'm sure for many of us, if we were to never buy a pair of heels again, we'll still be okay. We'll still have shoes to wear. It's definitely worth asking yourself before you make these purchases, purchase? Like, do I have something similar? And if so, and you don't really need it, and you have other financial obligations or things that you're trying to do, then yeah, just leave it. Another question to ask yourself is why? Why do I need to make this purchase? Why am I making this transaction? It's good to ask yourself these questions because it's very thought-provoking, because it makes you think. It's like, actually, really and truly, why am I spending this money? Like, why do I feel the need to keep going on ASOS and buying all these items? Why do I feel the need to be buying all these outfits when we're in lockdown and I can't go anywhere? I'm buying these outfits for the sake of buying them. Like, these are questions to really ask yourself. When you ask yourself these questions and have these open conversations with yourself, you start to realize that, okay, a lot of the things that I'm doing, I'm just kind of doing it autopilot because that's what I've always done, or I'm doing it to make myself feel better because there's other things going on in my life that this is kind of like my escapism, and this is kind of the thing that makes me feel better. But depending on where you are in your financial journey, it might actually end up having the opposite effect to what you're trying to achieve. So it might be a case of you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm buying these things to make myself happy and it makes me feel better, it gives me that buzz that I need. But then if you're in a position where you're in a lot of debt and you're acquiring all these items, all you're going to do is kind of make yourself feel worse at the end of the day, because when that credit card bill comes in or that Klarna bill comes in and you have to pay it and the money might not be there to pay it, you're not going to be feeling very fantastic, and it's just going to make the situation worse for you. So it's definitely worth questioning your why, questioning your motive, your intention, questioning whether or not you actually really want to do what you're doing, or you're just doing it without really giving it a second thought. Another question to ask yourself is this an impulse purchase? Just by doing that, it makes you think twice before you make that transaction, because you're stopping yourself in your tracks and you're questioning the transaction before it goes ahead. Because a lot of times we just do things because that's how we've always done it, or that's what we've always done, without really giving it a second thought. You walk past your local corner shop and you're used to just going in there and grabbing a magazine and some snacks, and that's something you've always done on your way home. So you just keep doing it because you've always done it. But if you actually ask yourself before you make that transaction or make that purchase, like, wait, am I just doing this thing on impulse, or do I actually really want this? 9 out of 10 times you probably just not make that transaction. Another good question to ask yourself before making a purchase is, how many hours of my life is this item going to cost me? How many hours of my life am I going to have to work to pay for this item, or have I worked in order to pay this item? When you start calculating the cost of items in hours instead of the actual monetary value, it makes you think twice sometimes about making that purchase. Because, for example, a pair of boots in which you paid £120 for might not seem like nothing much, and you might not even give it a second thought. But if you say this pair of boots is going to cost me 12 hours of my life, that's going to make you think differently about that purchase before you make it. Another good question to ask yourself before making a purchase is, does this actually align with my values and with my goals? Because a lot of times when we just do things on impulse, or we just do things because we've always done them a certain way, and we don't actually count the cost or really think twice about what we're doing before we do it, we just do what we've always done, we might be making purchase decisions that don't actually align with what we're trying to do, where we're trying to get to, and the goals in which we're trying to achieve. So by asking yourself that question, you'll be able to kind of take stock and really check yourself and evaluate whether or not you do want to go ahead with that transaction. Because yes, of course, every single transaction is not going to be directly related to your financial goals, but if you find yourself just squandering money on things that are not as important or are not beneficial to you achieving your financial goals, then asking yourself the question of, does this align with my financial goals and where I'm trying to get to? It will really help stop you from making some unnecessary purchases. Another good question to ask yourself before making a purchase is, if I don't make this purchase, will I regret it? Now, this is a good question to ask yourself, because this will show you how important this transaction really is to you. There's nothing worse not making a purchase and regretting it for so long afterwards. I've had many of those moments in the past when it comes to sale items that I've really wanted to buy, and I've said to myself, I'm just going to wait to see if the price goes down, or I'm just going to think about it before buying it, and I'll go back to the shop to buy it and the item is gone, it's sold out, and I'm like, oh man, I should have just bought it when I had the chance. So yeah, if you know that you're going to end up in that position and you're going to regret not making that purchase, then you'll know for sure what to do about that purchase. So these are just some of the questions that I think you should ask yourself before making a purchase. Even just asking yourself a few of those questions before making a purchase, you're going to find that you're saving yourself so much more money on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. Let me know in the comment section below if these are any of the questions that you ask yourself before you make a purchase, or if there are any other questions that you ask yourself that I haven't mentioned in this video. But with that being said, if you've made it this far in the video and you haven't yet given it a thumbs up, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet done so. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you on my next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.